Howdy folks, welcome to another Marvel universe. We all have our core memories of tuning into Cartoon Network and other networks to watch our favorite animated shows as children. It therefore wouldn't be a stretch to say that these shows have shaped our childhood and taught us valuable life lessons, in addition to providing great entertainment. One of these shows was the Thundercats series, which followed the story of a group of humanoid cat aliens and their adventures against the evil sorcerer Mumm-Ra and his mutant henchmen. The series is based on characters developed by American writer Tobin Wolf, and has seen numerous adaptations over the years. The most well-known is the original series, which premiered in 1985 and ran for a total of 130 episodes. A 2011 adaptation would follow, developed by Ethan Spalding and Michael Jennings for Cartoon Network, which would retain the tone and theme of the original series. However, before that, a 2003 comic book called Thundercats: The Return would be released, and this would greatly alter everything we know about the franchise. This was a 5-issue limited comic book miniseries, published by Wildstorm. In this series, we revisited the much-beloved characters from our childhood in a dark and dystopian setting, featuring a more mature narrative. While the earlier Thundercats series was primarily aimed at a younger audience, the comic book is certainly not directed towards them at all. It explores the Thundercats mythos through a much grittier lens, exploring themes of vengeance, guilt, loss, and abuse. While there are those who have appreciated this much more mature take, praising the evolution that the series had undergone, many were quite rightly shocked and even repulsed by it. They felt betrayed that the warm memories of their childhood had been tainted just to shock and subvert their expectations. The series relies heavily on this shock value, rather than attempting to make meaningful narrative progression. Thundercats: The Return felt like a slap in the face of the Thundercats legacy, as none of what made the series so appealing and great was present here. The broken and traumatized portrayals of some of their favorite characters left a bitter taste in the mouth of many fans, and it was viewed by many as being disrespectful and unnecessarily bleak. It felt like the creators were more focused on being different from the original series by making it bleak and grim, rather than telling a compelling continuation of the Thundercats story. For many fans, as stated earlier, Thundercats is laden with nostalgia, and this sudden shift completely alienated them. We won't go so far as to say that this comic series was universally hated, but it definitely wasn't the best received either. In this video, we'll explore how Thundercats: The Return deviates from the original show, and what could possibly have turned so many fans against it. So without further ado, let's explore the evolution of Thundercats from Roar to Shadow. Let's begin. Tone and setting. Right from the outset, there's a marked difference between the tone and setting of the Thundercats 2011 and the original Thundercats. The original Thundercats was a pretty serious show for a children's cartoon, but ultimately it was a series dedicated to kids. Sprinkled in between the more serious narratives were moments of levity, provided through various comic relief. The series was akin to a mythological epic in terms of its storytelling, as it was filled with characters like Lion-O, Tigra, and Panthro, who embodied heroic tropes of sacrifice, leadership, and noble intentions. It had a sort of campy, over-the-top vibe, but that added to the overall charm of the show. The story was centered around a group of warriors led by their inexperienced and young leader, as they tried to come to terms with their new home and the legacy of their forebearers. It was an endearing tale of perseverance and a coming-of-age story, as the Thundercats faced off and triumphed over the evil Mumm-Ra and his henchmen. Thundercats: The Return sees a marked departure from the tone and setting of the original. It's a darker and grittier series that is clearly not oriented towards children. The tone of the series is extremely heavy, with themes of sexual abuse and slavery, painting a grim picture. It's jarring to see the Thundercats that entertained and inspired us in our early childhood presented in such a light. What's especially egregious is to see the Thunder Kittens, Wily Kit and Wily Cat, who in the original series were just children, now being presented to us as scantily clad slaves. The series also heavily hints at Cat being sexually abused by Mumm-Ra, who even refers to her as his concubine. Even though these two characters are older in Thundercats: The Return, it's still very disturbing to see the children we knew being shown to us in this light. We must also mention that when we say they're older, we don't mean they are full-fledged adults either. Even Chitara, who's being kept enslaved by Mumm-Ra's mutant henchmen, is hinted at being regularly raped by them. In the meantime, Panthera and Tigra are helpless slaves, while Snarf, who usually functioned as the comic relief in the series, is shown to have lost his mind and developed a dissociative personality. The series is set 5 years after the Thundercats reclaimed Thundera, when they're ambushed and enslaved by the evil Mumm-Ra, whom they thought was vanquished. This shift in the tone and setting of the series had led so many fans to dismissing it as a joyless and unnecessarily dark interpretation of the series. Character development. The character development that we witnessed in both these shows is wildly different from each other. Starting with the original, we witnessed Lion-O's growth from a child trapped in a man's body to someone who undergoes various trials and tribulations, learning valuable lessons such as patience, humility, and responsibility. This leads to him gradually developing the necessary wisdom and courage to truly assume the mantle of the Thundercats ruler. Similarly, the rest of the cast also enjoy a fairly well-written character development throughout the series. For instance, Tigra is depicted as stoic, but at the same time, he's the voice of reason within the group. Chitara is depicted as the emotional center of the group thanks to her uncanny intuition and spiritual strength. Panthro is the brave and reliable warrior with great depth, as his past and vulnerabilities are explored, leading to a more rounded character. And finally, Wily Kid and Wily Cat, who are occasionally used to explore growing pains and moral choices, are generally there to act as plot devices and comic relief. The character development in the original series focuses on providing its young audience with characters that offer educational and moral lessons. All of this is completely subverted in Thundercats: The Return, thanks to its edgy and mature tones, which provide a significantly different character development compared to the original series. In this series, Lion-O has transformed from the bright and heroic lord of the Thundercats to a vengeful and hardened ruler. He's burdened by guilt and driven by rage over his absence during the fall of Thundera. Tigra is imprisoned and depicted as an emotionally shattered character. He's no longer used to represent the voice of reason, but is instead used to show the decay of the world. Chitara's character is not developed any better, as she lacks strong agency and is portrayed largely as a victim, which is a far cry from her strong personality in the original series. Panthro fares no better, with his character transitioning from a noble warrior to a slave laborer, whose fall is used to highlight the despair and collapse of the Thundercats. The worst character development, once again, has to be the Thunderkittens, who are overtly sexualized and objectified in this series. Their innocence is corrupted in both terms of their design and characterization. What really put the fans off regarding this type of character development is the fact that there's no personal growth to be seen here, only regression. Each character's development has been unilaterally transformed into a tragedy, leaving no room for depth and nuance. It's as if the creator of the series decided to subvert fan expectations by leading these characters down this route merely for the shock value. Thundercats: The Return commits the cardinal sin of sacrificing character growth for mood and tone, and it's no surprise that this led to many fans being disgusted, seeing how their favorite characters had been handled in this series. Villains and threats. The villains and threats in Thundercats Classic 1985 to 1989 and Thundercats: The Return 2003 differ dramatically in tone, purpose, and narrative function. In the original series, the primary antagonist, Mumm-Ra, serves as the classic evil overlord whom the heroes frequently defeat through courage, teamwork, and other moral virtues that they embody. He's almost a caricature villain that is unable to cause any lasting harm, with each episode resetting the status quo. Even in defeat, Mumm-Ra served the purpose of telling moral lessons. The rest of the bad guys, like the Vulture Man, Slithe, Jackal Man, and Monkeyan, served the function of being merely flavor of the week villains. They were bumbling and cowardly fools who served as mere cannon fodder for the heroes and were never a serious threat to them. Just like Mumm-Ra, they too served as moral lessons for the young audience, against things like greed, arrogance, and vengeance. Meanwhile, these same cartoonish villains are anything but that in Thundercats: The Return. Unlike the original series, where he's constantly thwarted by the Thundercats, Mumm-Ra has already won the battle against them right at the beginning of the story. He's far more ruthless, cunning, and powerful, having enslaved, tortured, and killed most of the Thunderians. Long gone is the villain that was defeated week in, week out by the power of friendship. In his place is a tyrant, capable of committing the worst atrocities, including genocide, torture, slavery, and sexual abuse of minors. His threat is absolute, as he embodies fear, control, and moral decay. Along with him, his goons have been elevated to a new level of evil as well. They're just as sadistic and cruel as their master in their new avatars. These individuals are actively responsible for the oppression of the Thundercats, and it's also hinted that they have been actively abusing Chitara, who's in their captivity. They've gone from being comic relief to ruthless enforcers of the world order established by Mumm-Ra. From the episodic threats that rarely had any consequence to representatives of constant oppression in a world that has already been conquered, these villains are deeply sinister. The villains of Thundercats: The Return are manifestations of trauma and defeat. They show what happens when evil isn't stopped, serving as a dystopian warning for adult readers. Many readers felt the new characterization of the villains betrayed the spirit of the original, which balanced conflict with heroism and adventure. These new villains are not just threatening, they're cruel in ways that feel exploitative, especially given the characters' origins in a children's franchise. These characters lose their identity and charm, becoming interchangeable dark versions of themselves with none of the color or charisma that made them even remotely memorable. Visual design. One of the most defining traits of any animated series is its visual design, and change in this is inevitably going to draw reactions from the fans. While we understand there's a gap of almost 20 years or more between the two shows, there are going to be comparisons between their visual designs, and it can play a critical role in swaying the audience's opinion about the show. The original animation was created by Pacific Animation Corp., which incorporated Japanese anime styles with Western animation to present a series featuring bright color palettes, clean lines, and an 80s fantasy aesthetic. The series featured a lot of dynamic and energetic scenes with superhero poses and transformations viewed through wide frames. The Third Earth, the world in which the series is set, is depicted as a vibrant and colorful one, featuring jungles, deserts, seas, and alien cities. The characters are stylized and not hyper-realistically depicted, giving them a cartoony yet threatening vibe. The overall visual design, especially when viewed now, evokes very strong nostalgia vibes. In contrast, the 2003 comic series is once again the exact opposite in this department as well. The visual design is extremely gritty, rugged, and sexualized, as it's meant to bring to life these very themes that the show is based around. If you're familiar with the visual design of the early 2000s comics like Spawn and Witchblade, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. The tone of the art inspires hopelessness, as it paints an oppressive atmosphere. Gone are the lush, vibrant, and green landscapes. Instead, they're replaced by the visuals of a decaying world, filled with dark dungeons, prisons, and ruins. In short, the design is meant to drive home this image of a dystopian world, which it does quite well. While the classic Thundercats uses visual design to evoke heroism and spark imaginations, Thundercats The Return uses design to emphasize despair, domination, and decay. Now this is where things get a little complicated with regard to how this affects the series' public perception. Thundercats The Return's visual design is by no means unappealing or out of place for what the series is all about. In fact, we can say it does a stellar job of presenting this grim dystopian world where all hope is lost. The characters and the environments are also very well rendered and are certainly not terrible to behold. If things are not bad, then why is the visual design of the second series criticized as well? The first thing we need to understand is that no one can please everybody, but its detractors do make a few fair points as well. Many fans are of the opinion that this series sacrificed visual personality for edginess. While the design is technically competent, it often feels alien to the tone and legacy of the older series. These things have led it to be poorly received in many veteran fan circles. Contrasting narrative purpose. The classic Thundercats is a heroic sci-fi fantasy cartoon combining anime-style visuals with timeless moral lessons. Each episode presents a clear ethical lesson like teamwork, courage, honesty, humility, and patience. The violence used in the series in any form is merely a tool, as the true victories are won through heroic virtues. Lion-O's growth provides the powerful symbolism of a child growing up and learning to become a responsible adult, which resonates greatly with not just the show's younger audience, but also their parents. The show's atmosphere and design, along with its narrative direction, challenge its audience to explore their imagination, as it is replete with strange creatures, numerous relics, and mystical artifacts. The series provides a positive affirmation that virtues like loyalty, courage, and wisdom are rewarded. It teaches kids that while evil is powerful, it's never overwhelming, and that heroes win because they're good people, not just powerful fighters. The 2003 comic series completely flips this narrative purpose on its head, as it's meant to provide shock to the kids who have grown up watching this series and are now adults. It serves to subvert their understanding of what the Thundercats series stood for. Instead of restoring balance and defeating evil, the narrative focuses on loss, guilt, and irreversible damage. It paints a world that is on the brink of collapse, with Mumm-Ra being not just the villain to defeat in order to impart a lesson, but a much more insidious symbol for a system of domination. It follows the narrative trend of the early 2000s comic books, where the series is used to critique society instead of uplifting it. If the classic Thundercats uses its narrative to build a story that teaches virtues like loyalty and hope, Thundercats The Return dismantles these very things with its own narrative. It asks questions about what happens when these things are just not enough. You can say it's a cynical approach to the narrative that reflects the anxieties of the time it's created in. Thundercats The Return is part of a broader storytelling trend where growing up is equated with watching your heroes fall. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but it serves a purpose that most fans neither wanted nor appreciated. Marvelous verdict. The difference between Thundercats Classic and Thundercats The Return is more than a mere shift in tone. It represents a clash of opposing storytelling philosophies rooted in different eras, audiences, and cultural expectations. The original Thundercats was a mythic and morally anchored tale designed to inspire and teach its younger audience. While the world is full of danger and evil, there's also plenty of hope on offer. The characters in the original series embodied growth, virtue, and the belief that good could triumph through courage and unity. It served as both adventure and allegory, giving children heroic figures to to look up to. In contrast, Thundercats: The Return strips away any form of idealism that's presented in the original. It paints a much darker and cynical world bereft of hope. The comic asks difficult questions regarding the consequences of having the very symbols of virtue and good being broken and corrupted. It deconstructs childhood values that were learnt from the original series and forces the audience to reckon with the disillusionment of adulthood. While some view it as a bold step towards a more mature storytelling, others see it as a betrayal of the very spirit that made the Thundercats so iconic. Thundercats: The Return represents an evolution in storytelling that's meant to match the growth of the original audience. While it's true that it's mostly viewed as a misstep in relation to everything we've discussed today, it's also a stark reminder of how stories and their interpretation continue to evolve alongside us, and it's not always something we need to agree with. Thank you for sticking with us to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to check out the rest of our channel as well. We post regular videos on all your favorite anime, manga, TV shows, and movies, so you're always up to date with the latest and greatest. For now though, it's time for us to say goodbye. We hope to see you soon on the next one. Until then, stay safe and stay marvelous. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one. Thanks everyone!